What is fascinating to me is have you seen the Go Fast video?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about those videos where there's no heat signature, no visible means of propulsion, and these things are whipping through the sky?
I mean, you've talked to Mick West and other people, and I'm not saying he's not a scientist in the sense that he's someone like I am. But some of these things are, it always comes down to like, well, whose data is it?
Right. So these are fighter jet pilots that are seeing these things, and they're discussing it. Play that video so you could listen to their discussion of it while they're seeing this thing. Mm-hmm. What do you think it is?
So when I look at those things, there's a couple of different things that you have to look at from an optical perspective, from a sensor perspective, from a...
Let me hear them talk.
Yeah.
So right now we're looking at this video where this thing seems to be trying to tracking it. Their systems are trying to track it. But it's so they locked onto it now.
Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly.
So obviously they're freaking out.
Yeah, so
they locked onto it with their weapon system.
Yeah. So there's something called scale invariance, which is where you can't really tell in certain phenomena. Fractals are like, have you ever seen like the Mandelbrot set? So no matter how much you zoom into it or zoom out of it, it looks the same. Right. And there are lots of features like that. And one of the manifestations of that is the ocean surface. There are waves on top of waves. You ever seen the beautiful Japanese woodcut where it's like wave on top?
Sure.
Incredible. So there you're seeing a lot of waves, but it's impossible to have any depth perception, right? Because we're only getting a single view of it. And there's a gyroscopic stabilization tool that they're using in the FLIR system that's measuring it, right? So there is a heat signature. That's how they can see it on FLIR, if the forward-looking infrared camera.
Propulsion. Oh, it's universal. It's not like there's something coming out the back, like a jet engine where you could see it clearly.
So there have been mock-ups and simulations done for this, where it's like you could have a balloon, you could have something spherical, or something that's actually going with the wind.
But can't they detect how fast it's moving?
No. So not from that video. You can't necessarily.
But from their systems, from their weapon systems, they can't detect how fast. Like they were having a hard time locking onto it.
So I asked Ariel Kleinerman and Ryan about this, and they said it's classic. Like they wouldn't tell me what their radar is capable of saying, only that they can use it to determine certain properties of things.
But it seemed very evident in that video that they were having a hard time catching it because it was moving at a very high rate of speed.
This is 2004, I think. This video
was that one.
Yeah.
So they're trying to lock onto this thing, and it's moving too fast, and you see the crosshairs try to keep up with it, and then finally it locks onto it, and that's when they cheer that we got it, and they say, "Look at that thing go!"
Right.
Don't you think they would have an understanding of the speed that something's moving and not think of it as a balloon that's just floating around?
Well, remember, this is stabilized, so they're locking on, so they're moving in a perspective where
but don't you think their equipment has the ability to detect speed?
Do you know how big the field of view of that thing was?
I don't.
Yeah, so we don't either.
Well, I don't know if they. I don't know if they've released how large they estimate it is. So this is all leaked video, right?
Right. So if you were to look through this telescope, at the moon, and there was a balloon on the telescope, floating in front of the moon, and you could see it, and it was big, and like Chinese spy balloon or something like that, and it's moving, and you're moving, and you don't know the relative field of view compared to the size of this object. It may appear that it's going. If that thing is the size of an Embraer jetliner, yeah, that's freaking fast, right? If it's the size of a balloon being carried by the wind that you are stabilized in a parcel of wind, it might not be.
We're assuming that there's wind. We're assuming it's being carried by the wind, but we're assuming it's being carried by the wind in the same direction. We don't know which way the wind was blowing. We don't. But what my point is that they seem to think that was very unusual. And these aren't guys that are just like, oh my God, a balloon, shoot it.
Well, that's when I went back to the feeling of pity that, and again, he doesn't need my pity, but let's say your life, you were seeing these things, and let's forget it. It's a Chinese war drone, military drone that's coming to blow up the Nimitz, okay, or whatever they were on, okay? And so you then, your compatriot, your comrade comes back to the deck, and you put like Independence Day posters on his rug, and you've seen it too. It doesn't. that's not what I would do. If my kid comes to me and says, I saw, the boogeyman or something, she's like really nervous. I don't say like, well, like, let me tease her about it. Like, no, I remember.
Okay, I wouldn't do that to my kid, but I would definitely do that to my friends. If one of my friends said they saw an alien, 100%.
Oh, Joe, you would do it.
I would take a rubber alien, I'd put it in their bed, have it tucked in.
Okay.
Yeah, but just for fun. And that's what those guys were doing to him. You're making it seem like they like horribly insulted him. They were just busting balls.
Let me say this. You're a pilot. Let's say you charter a private jet sometime, okay? You're out with Lex and you're going to Vegas, or whatever, and you charter a private jet, right? You're on the jet. The guy who's in there is flying the plane, and you found out that he actually was an ex-military pilot, and he did see one of these things. And so you get one of your friends, your buddies, dresses up as an alien, bust into the cockpit and starts, I'm the alien that you find. You wouldn't do. I mean,
that seems like a silly comparison.
I'm just
what
making
you're
the
talking
comparison.
about is a guy
their
who
life
comes
is threatened,
back.
though. But if
he
their
comes
life is
back
really
from a flight claiming to have seen UFOs and his friends bust his balls.
This happened many times.
But that's in the military. That's normal military shit.
But Ryan's saying the opposite now. Ryan's saying no, these people are scared for their safety now. Now he's doing the Americans for Safe Aerospace, that he has to be, and part of their mission is to protect pilots.
This is
and
because of close
destigmatize
encounters with these things,
and
right?
Destigmatize.
This is the square in a circle.
The cube around a sphere.
Is it a cube around a sphere?
It's it could be.
Which one is it? Is it a black cube?
It's on my video.
Sphere?
I made a very expensive thumbnail for my video with Ryan Graves.
A sphere in a cube.
A sphere inside a cube?
Yeah.
So this sphere inside a cube is a repeating theme, right? They see a lot of these.
On the East Coast. Yeah.
On the East Coast.
Yeah, on the West Coast.
So do you think these things are drones? What do you think these things are?
Well, do you remember the Chinese spy balloon, that came about recently? And do you remember how we didn't shoot it down?
Yeah.
And do you remember when that came about? It was like right before this disclosure was about to get kicked off. I mean, there's some weird things that are going on. There's certainly things.
You connect those two things together, one thing that moves in a very bizarre way that they can't seem to replicate. They don't know how these things stay stable at 120 knots. Well, according to all of his equipment, unless their equipment totally sucks. And this is like the equipment that got upgraded in 2014.
Right, but then they say, I can't tell you about the equipment. And
right, but they can tell you that when the equipment was upgraded, that's when they started detecting these things. So if the equipment is accurate and the equipment is upgraded and then they put it on these jets and these guys are detecting these things, and then there's visual confirmation of these things by multiple pilots, and it's a reoccurring thing. They see them in the same areas all the time.
Well, then why wouldn't the government go out? Why wouldn't they be sending out? I asked Ryan that. I said, why don't they send out sorties every day if they're doing it at nothing less?
Because maybe it's theirs.
You're right. It could be.
Maybe it's theirs. The U.S. shoots down another flying object over Canada. What did they shoot down?
Yeah.
What did they shoot down?
They didn't say.
This is the...
I'm sure that... Well, I had Mike Baker on, who used to be with the CIA, and he was
right.
explaining all these Chinese balloons.
Oh, this was from Eric Weinstein shared this yesterday. He said there's these three different... On the screen, there's a map of 3 different NORAD shots that happened. This is from Time. And